The Israeli offensive in Gaza has left more than 500 Palestinians dead. Sunday was the bloodiest day of the conflict. The shelling of one particular district killed more than 100 people. Residents and families escaped through streets strewn with bodies and rubble. Well, despite rising casualties, Israel's continuing to pound Gaza. 35 people have been killed this morning in southern Gaza, many belonging to just one family. Also, at least 10 militants were killed as they crossed the border through 2 tunnels. Prime Minister Netanyahu is vowing to continue operations as much as needed. Despite the casualties, a humanitarian truce lasted less than an hour on Sunday before both sides blamed each other for violating it. Now, our correspondent sent a video from the heart of the conflict. It contains some images which you may find distressing.
OK, so what we're doing now?
We should move back.
This footage apparently shows a man among the ruins of destroyed residential buildings. He's thought to be the target of government gunfire, and he appears to be hit by a bullet while lying stretched out on the ground. Harry Fear talked to a witness of that incident.
A group of international solidarity activists and 2 Palestinians were making a trip into the East Shejaiya, very close to the border with Israel. This was at a time when there was a halt on Israel's operations in the area. There were 2 Palestinians there. One was an activist which shot the video, the images that you just saw, and there was another, a young man, we believe approximately 18 or 19 years old, the one depicted in the imagery, which shows him, of course, being fatally wounded and dying in front of these international solidarity activists. This young gentleman wished to take these activists to this area in order to help evacuate his family, which he believed was caught up there and had been pinned down essentially for hours in this extremely dangerous neighbourhood. I'm joined now by human rights activist and witness Rina Andalini. Rina, can you tell us exactly what you saw with respect to the death of this young man?
With respect to the death, altogether there were 4 shots fired. The first one missed him, but the remainder 3 were aimed for him. The second one was fatal, which caused him to fall down on the ground. And the third one was, I guess, for them to make sure that they had got him, basically.
Do you have any reason to believe he was caught up in militant activities?
No, not at all. He was, as far as we are aware, he was looking for his family. He was frantic. He was leading the way. He was on the phone. He knew the area, and all he wanted to do was find his family, which resulted in his death. There was supposed to be a ceasefire as well. However, as we set foot into the region, there was bombing nearby, there was shelling nearby, and snipers shooting as well.
Yes, indeed. So that's some of the detail of this incident on Shejaiya, killing this young gentleman this afternoon.
Earlier, an Israeli Defence Force spokesperson told my colleague Yunan O'Neill they're doing all they can to protect civilian lives.
And the Hamas Minister of the Interior specifically instructed the civilian population in Gaza not to leave their homes, not to leave to the instructions, and not to follow the instructions that the military provided.
But you knew these innocent people were in their homes, and yet you still decided to strike. Was that your decision?
We provided as much warning as we could, and at the end, we had to attack certain targets that are resulting in the terrorization of our entire public.
Now, in one of the latest attacks, though, the Israeli military, they used flechette shells which spray out thousands of tiny and potentially lethal metal darts. We've seen that. Now, some rules of humanitarian law render their use in the Gaza Strip illegal, as an imprecise weapon is more likely to result in civilian injuries, which, of course, we have seen in spades. Why do you ignore international law in this case?
I can say with full confidence and with full sincerity that any weapon that is being used by the IDF is done so in line with international law.
We're seeing hospitals, schools, media offices, essentially sick people, children and the ordinary working man and woman being hit in these places. you know, overwhelmingly. Why is this?
They're not being targeted. And the reason that they are not leaving and following the instructions that we are giving them is because Hamas finds it in its asset to leave them in these areas.